for nothing, I get loose. Sure bees fighting with them foes all the time, but I gotta do it, they always stay out of line. Sometimes I wanna just chill and land, but I'm the protector of the emeralds and gems. Stay knuckled up in a deep cut. I'm seeing skulls that burn, they tryna throw me off. Avoiding my luck, I'm feeling kinda stuck. Don't call me Knuckles, give me a box. An aquatic mind. Once was a cold pit, but now it's a water ride. Makes you wanna sit back, enjoy the life, and do things you like doing, get to shine. It's sure bees fighting with them foes all the time, but I gotta do it, they always stay out of line. Sometimes I wanna just chill and land, but I'm the protector of the emeralds and gems. I stay knuckled up, I'm in a deep cut. I'm seeing skulls that burn, they tryna cut me off. Avoiding my luck, I'm feeling kinda stuck. I'm in narrow hallways, running like it's a ball game. Hand tracks be tracking me to different doorways. In a maze, and I don't know what to do. Guaranteed though, I'ma find the emeralds. Don't call me Knuckles for nothing, I get loose. Sure bees fighting with them foes all the time, but I gotta do it, they always stay out of line. Sometimes I wanna just chill and land, but I'm the protector of the emeralds and gems. Stay knuckled up in a deep cut. I'm seeing skulls that burn, they tryna throw me off. Avoiding my luck, I'm feeling kinda stuck. Don't call me Knuckles, give me a box. Any criminal, crime don't pay. Seen the crazy of Eggman's face. Don't let it hit you more. 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 seen the first milk Eggman's baby. Don't let it hit you more. 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 Don't let it
to meet my
Introducing Sega Saturn.
We are 5 years away from entering the 21st century. Ready for the future.
don't, you can fly, you can reach the other side of the rainbow. It's alright, take a chance, 'cause there is no circumstance that you can't handle when you use your mind. Sonic boom, sonic boom, sonic boom, keeps you running faster. Sonic boom, sonic boom, save the planet from disaster. To the dark, to the light, it's a supersonic flight. Gotta keep it going. Sonic boom, sonic boom, sonic boom, keeps you running faster. Sonic boom, sonic boom, save the planet from disaster. Sonic boom, sonic boom, spinning through a world in motion. Sonic boom, sonic boom, save the planet from disaster.
Okay.
Guess I should have asked the captain for a map or something.
Where on earth have you been?
Arr! You've got me confused with someone else. I'm Donkey Croc, the pirate, arr! And I'm looking for Donkey Kong, the ape.
No, you're not.
I'm not.
No, you're Donkey Roo.
Well, listen here, while I make it clear. I can't believe you can't see what we see here. A crocodile, a superior species. Your Donkey Croc, initials DC. Looking at your claws, you could be one of my in-laws. Cause you're one of us, you mean and green, scaly sheen. Can't you see you're one of us? You walk the walk, my brother Croc. Arm in arm, together we rock.
Well, if what you say is true, then I guess we're brothers, same color with a similar hue. With these fangs and this scaly skin, there's no question that we're family next of kin. Cause I'm one of you, the same crew, nothing I can do. I can see I'm one of you, the same crew. I'm really one of you.
Donkey Kong. Women want him, men want to be him. But few understand him. Who is Donkey Kong? How did he become the ape he is today? Hi, I'm Robert Kongman, and today I'm going to tell you the story of Kong. In order to understand modern-day Donkey Kong, one must first understand his grandfather. As I'm sure many of you are already aware, the original Donkey Kong, appearing in the classic arcade hit Donkey Kong, was not in fact modern-day Donkey Kong, but rather his grandfather, who is better known today as Cranky Kong. Cranky Kong, whom I will be referring to from this point onwards as Donkey Kong the First, actually began his adventure long before this arcade classic. Allow me to take you back in time to 2006, when Nintendo released a title for the Nintendo DS titled Yoshi's Island DS. Now you may be asking, Robert, what does Yoshi's Island DS have to do with this beautiful ape here? And just let me talk for a second. Yoshi's Island DS served as a sequel to the popular Yoshi's Island released years earlier on the Nintendo Entertainment System Super, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Expanding on the gameplay of the original, Yoshi's Island DS featured 5 selectable babies as opposed to the 1 in the original game. In addition to the popular Baby Mario, we received Baby Peach, Baby Wario, Baby Bowser, and of course, Baby Donkey Kong. Now hold on a minute, you may be saying. Baby Donkey Kong? Why, that doesn't make much sense at all, does it? Considering the fact that this Baby Donkey Kong here was an infant at the same time as Baby Mario, we can come to only one conclusion. The Baby Donkey Kong featured in Yoshi's Island DS is not modern-day Donkey Kong, but rather Donkey Kong the First. Though not a real animal, Kongs are based on real-life animals. Donkey Kong in particular is based on a gorilla. Gorillas live, on average, between 35 and 40 years. Much shorter, mind you, than the average lifespan of a human being. If we take that into consideration, one may assume that Kongs age much more quickly than your average human being. So if Mario and Donkey Kong the First were both infants at the same time, that would make them the same age. Now, judging by the fact that Donkey Kong the First appears to be a fully grown gorilla by the time he meets Mario again in the arcade game Donkey Kong, we can assume that both of them are around the age of 20, I would say. By his early 20s, Donkey Kong the First would have been a middle-aged man, and Mario would have been a young man. This fits perfectly with their characterization in the Donkey Kong video game. Not long after the original Donkey Kong arcade game, a sequel was born, in the form of Donkey Kong Jr. In Donkey Kong Jr., a new Kong was thrown into the mix, being Donkey Kong Jr. So it seems that Donkey Kong the First had a son. But with whom? As far as I'm aware, making a baby Kong would require 2 grown-up Kongs to do the thing. As it turns out, years later in Donkey Kong Country 2, we would eventually meet modern-day Donkey Kong's grandmother, but more on her in a bit. So anyway, Donkey Kong Jr. eventually bested Mario, rescued his father, and then, at some point, had a son of his own. Not long after that, however, disaster struck. Explosions could be heard in the distance. Screaming Kongs running to their barrel jets, fleeing from the burning apocalypse that they were leaving behind them. I am, of course, talking about the Great Ape War. Not much is known about this horrific event, but we do know it did happen. I'm not making to go look it up. It's a thing. The Great Ape War happened. In Donkey Kong Country, there was one very peculiar enemy that stood out among the Kremling ranks. This, of course, was the Manky Kong. Unlike the other reptilian and insectoid enemies Donkey Kong III faced in that perilous journey, Manky Kongs were fellow Kongs. However, they were on the opposite side. Thanks to proper documentation, we do know the story behind these creatures. Unfortunately, the tides of war were not in favor of the Primate Alliance. According to historic texts, large amounts of the Primate Alliance began questioning whether they could actually win this war, thus resulting in a Manky rebellion. These Manky Kongs who had betrayed the Primate Alliance were forever cast out as Kong family rejects. Now, where does Donkey Kong Jr. tie into this horrific war? Well, we don't have any official documentation on it, but I've got a theory of my own. The modern-day Kong family is clearly very close with one another. They're always helping each other out, inviting each other to their birthday parties, going climbing in jungle. They're friends, they're all good friends. But where's modern-day Donkey Kong's father, aka Donkey Kong Jr.? Where is he? The only time he's been seen along with his son was in a non-canonical appearance in Mario Tennis, but that game also had Mario alongside his younger counterpart, so no one cares about that. Game's not canon. No, just put it out, get it out of here. What I'm trying to say is it doesn't seem very likely that Donkey Kong Jr. would want to be absent in his son's life. Unless, of course, something prevented him from being a part of his son's life. What could that something be? Well, I think it might just be the Great Ape War. My theory is that Donkey Kong Jr. was drafted into the Great Ape War to defend Donkey Kong Island, but unfortunately didn't make it out alive. There is perhaps a slim sliver of hope that Donkey Kong Jr. survived. In an old advertisement for Donkey Kong Land for the Game Boy, there was a mysterious Kong lurking in the shadows. This Kong looks almost identical to modern-day Donkey Kong, though instead of a red tie he wears a very fashionable and lady-attracting fedora. Who is this Kong? Where did he go? Where did he come from? Well, the disappearance of Donkey Kong Jr. and the fact that this mysterious Kong looks suspiciously like modern-day Donkey Kong could perhaps mean that Fedora Kong is Donkey Kong Jr. Perhaps the horrors of war were too much and he could not return home to his family. It's very possible that he came down with a severe case of PBSD and could not return home due to the constant screaming nightmares. Post-banana stress disorder is a real illness that affects many Kongs that were involved in this war. Its effects can still be seen in the modern era of Donkey Kong, even as far as the Mushroom Kingdom. In Super Mario RPG, there were enemies known as Chained Kongs, escaped POWs of the Great Ape War, now roaming the jungle still tied to their chains, suffering the effects of PBSD, and hostile to Mario and his friends, because they've lost their goddamn minds. One might even say they've gone bananas. It's very possible that Donkey Kong Jr. too was affected by this horrible disease. Perhaps he thought he was in no condition to raise a child, and decided to don a fedora, change his persona, and leave home forever. Perhaps he decided to take up a life of atheism and posting on image boards. Whether Donkey Kong Jr. died in the Great Ape War, or ran away and changed his persona forever, modern-day Donkey Kong was left all alone to be raised by his grandfather and grandmother. What happened to Donkey Kong Jr.'s wife, modern-day Donkey Kong's mother? I don't know, who cares? Unfortunately, there's one more sad event before we reach the modern era of Donkey Kong. The death of Donkey Kong III's grandmother. At some point between the events of Donkey Kong Country 3 and Donkey Kong 64, Wrinkly Kong passed away. We don't know how this happened, but seeing as she liked to do yoga and read library books, it's very possible that she injured herself in some strange yoga accident that she was reading about. Either that, or she died of old age. Wrinkly Kong still shows up, however, sometimes as a ghost to participate in barrel races and to give advice to Kongs who need it. I feel bad for Donkey Kong and his grandfather. It just feels like it would be like a constant reminder of her death if she kept showing up as a ghost. They probably want to move on. They probably want to move on with their lives, and they can't because she keeps coming back. It's a fate worse than death, I think. But anyway, that finally brings us to modern day Donkey Kong. This glorious bastard right here, Donkey Kong the Third. Modern day Donkey Kong first appeared in Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, in which he had to retrieve his stolen banana hoard from the evil, tyrannical King K. Rool and his Kremlin cronies club. But Donkey Kong is rarely seen these days without his nephew Diddy Kong, except in Mario Kart 8, because for some reason they believe maybe we should have fucking 4 baby Marios in the game rather than fucking Diddy Kong. But Diddy Kong's existence alone suggests the fact that perhaps Donkey Kong has a brother or sister of his own. Though we don't truly know the identity of this mystery Kong, many people theorize that Donkey Kong's brother may in fact be Funky Kong or perhaps Swanky Kong, for both of them share very similar appearances to modern-day Donkey Kong. But those are just theories. Kong theories. Diddy Kong brought his own friends along to the party. Dixie Kong, Diddy Kong's girlfriend, first appeared in Donkey Kong Country 2 alongside Diddy Kong, who first appeared in Donkey Kong Country 1, but they teamed up in Donkey Kong Country 2 to rescue Donkey Kong from Captain K. Rool, who is just King K. Rool in a different clothes. King K. Rool's kind of a fucking crazy person. Dixie Kong has a family of her own, however, suggesting that there's more than one major Kong family living on Donkey Kong Island. Dixie Kong's sister, Tiny Kong, first appeared in Donkey Kong 64 for the Nintendo 64. Ever since then, she's received quite a redesign and she's become a little risque. Not sure if I like this Tiny Kong. Maybe you should put on more clothes. I don't know. It just seems a little inappropriate. Tiny and Dixie Kong have relatives of their own, however. Kiddy Kong, who first appeared in Donkey Kong Country 3, is their cousin. And Kiddy Kong's big brother would be Chunky Kong, who first appeared in Donkey Kong 64. Speaking of Kongs who first appeared in Donkey Kong 64, that leads us to another strange Kong. Now, who is Lanky Kong? Not only is Lanky Kong not related to any other existing Kongs, but he doesn't even appear remotely similar to any of them either. Who is he? As it turns out, Lanky Kong shares long limbs and a similar name to the Manky Kongs, the rebellious scum from the Great Ape War. Perhaps Lanky Kong was one of them? Perhaps he was forgiven? We'll never know. But Lanky Kong is perhaps the greatest mystery in the entire Kong mythos. Speaking of other Kongs not yet mentioned who appeared in Donkey Kong 64, there would be Candy Kong, who first appeared in Donkey Kong Country 1 as the manager of the Save Barrel Emporium. Now, Candy Kong has been described as being modern-day Donkey Kong's girlfriend, so perhaps her and modern-day Donkey Kong will have a Donkey Kong the 4th someday. But there is a potential scandal involved here. Candy Kong has not made an appearance in a video game in quite some time, excluding her trophy in the recent Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Her most curious absence, however, was in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, where Donkey Kong, modern day, mind you, was celebrating his birthday. Now, all of his immediate family, of course, came. Cranky Kong, his grandfather. His own father couldn't come because he's most likely dead or missing. His mother is, who knows? His grandmother's dead. Her ghost didn't show up, but his grandmother's dead. His brother or sister, who knows where they were. His nephew showed up, His nephew's girlfriend showed up, which is honestly kind of strange. But Candy didn't. Now, isn't Candy supposed to be Donkey Kong's girlfriend? Now, what could possibly be more important to Candy Kong than her own boyfriend's birthday party? If you combine this with the fact that Candy Kong's trophy in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U mentions the fact that she catches the attention of male Kongs such as Funky Kong and Donkey Kong, and Funky Kong's absence in Mario Kart 8, perhaps Funky Kong and Candy Kong have run off together. Maybe. But that pretty much covers it for all of the major Kongs in today's modern Donkey Kong universe. Or does it? Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, originally released for the Nintendo GameCube with a Congo bongo peripheral where you slap on the bongo. It was quite fun. That featured several more Kongs, which were quite strange creatures. The Kongs featured in Donkey Kong Jungle Beat were not friendly at all. They were quite evil. Sumo Kong, Karate Kong, I don't actually have a list of them. I remember those two. Cactus Kong. Were they all named after fighting styles? I can see them in my head. Maybe there was Judo Kong? Dread Kong. Dreadlocks Kong. There were a bunch of bad Kongs in that game. I don't know where they fit in, guys. I really don't feel like talking about them. I think they were good at the end. Didn't they clap with them at the credits? I don't know. Look it up. I don't care about those guys. That was a really good game, but I don't care about those ones. Just they don't fit. So today we've discussed Donkey Kong's origins, his family, his extended family, the Great Ape War, the potential scandals in Donkey Kong's life with his relationships, his loved ones, his deceased loved ones. But there's one topic we've yet to really touch on. The Kremlings. Led by King K. Rool, the Kremlings are the major threat to Donkey Kong Island, mainly consisting of an army of crocodiles, alligators, bees, beavers. There was coats, flying coats, jackets, they'd laugh and throw barrels at you. A constant threat to Donkey Kong Island. Up until recently. Back in the SNES and N64 days, you could hardly keep King K. Rool away from Donkey Kong's banana horde, and that is not a sexual euphemism. Or is it? But in the recent years, King K. Rool has been mysteriously absent from Donkey Kong Island. Where has he gone? Well, I wouldn't worry. I've got a theory about that one as well. King K. Rool's last in-game appearance was in Mario Super Sluggers. In Mario Super Sluggers, compatibility played a very large role in selecting your team. Characters who were not friendly with one another would oftentimes have difficulty making successful passes, etc. They didn't play well together. As you'd expect, characters such as Donkey Kong and King K. Rool didn't get along, Mario and Bowser, but there was one very curious pairing there. Bowser and King K. Rool don't like one another. Now, why would this be? Whatever the reason for their unfavorable relationship, I believe this may be the key to King K. Rool's disappearance. Consider the following. Bowser dislikes King K. Rool for whatever reason. Bowser has a gigantic spiked club in this game. The two of them are currently on a remote island comprised entirely of baseball parks, where no one can hear you scream. My theory is that Bowser couldn't take it anymore. He took his baseball bat, crept up behind King K. Rool, and smashed his skull, and then buried the body underneath home plate. And no one would ever find out. Prove it didn't happen. You can't. Donkey Kong perhaps has the deepest lore and most interesting mythos of any fictional work ever created by human beings. It's very difficult to find a story as heart-wrenching and exciting and thrilling as Donkey Kong's. My name is Robert Kong. Thank you for joining me on my journey. And as always, have a go bananas. Fuck it. This was the dumbest thing I've ever fucking done in my life.
Crushing rocks seem such a breeze. He ain't move slow, he can jump high, but this calls one heck of a guy. Come on, Cranky, take it to the fridge. Walnut, peanut, pineapple smell, grapes, melons, oranges, and coconut shells. Walnuts, peanuts, pineapple smell, grapes, melons, oranges, and coconut shells. Oh yeah! He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well. He's finally back to kick some tail. His coconut gun can fire in spurts. If he shoots ya, it's gonna hurt. He's bigger, faster, and stronger too. He's the first member of the TK crew. TK, Donkey Kong. TK, Donkey Kong is here.
This Kong's got style, so let's make
no grace. This Kong has a funny face. He can handstand when he needs to and stretch his arms out just for you. He inflates himself just like a balloon. This great Z Kong just sings this tune. Yeah, Donkey Kong, come on. Yeah, Donkey Kong is here.
He's back again, it's about time too, and this time he's in the mood. He can fly real high with his shit back on. With his whiskers out, he's one tough call. He'll make us smile when he pulls his teeth. But Gremlins, beware, cause he's after you. DJ Donkey Kong. DJ Donkey Kong.
Finally, he's here for you. It's the last member of the DK crew. Lazy Kong, so strong it isn't funny, can make up gremlin, cry out for mummy. Pick up a boulder with relative ease, makes crushing rocks seem such a breeze. He may move slow, he can jump high, but this Kong's one heck of a guy. Come on, Cranky, take it to the fridge. Walnut, peanuts, pineapple smells, grapes, melons, oranges, and coconut shells. Walnuts, peanuts, pineapple smells, grapes, melons, oranges, and coconut shells. Oh yeah!
I don't know what's happening to me. I'm getting all the blame for things I didn't do. Can anybody tell me just what I did wrong? I'm all alone and I'm so confused. I don't know what everyone wants me to be. I only know just how to be me. Once I